Ah, fucking stupid thing. Yo, what's up? Ah, is it Wargamer that's there? Morning, Wargamer. How are you today? Wow, I drink coffee like no one's business. I'm already running out. Da, da, da. Why am I looking at crypto? Oh, this might be interesting.
When we're talking about gaming revenues, are we just talking about the quote unquote games, or are we talking about the whole ecosystem? Because for people that don't know, gaming's definitely going a lot beyond a cartridge and a joystick.
Right, right. Very good. Thanks for having me, Frank. So, so my forecast includes all the spending on software and services, so subscriptions as well as downloaded games, free-to-play games. It also includes console hardware, so the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S boxes going out the door, Nintendo Switch, stuff like that. And on the mobile side, it includes in-game advertising revenue going to developers and publishers.
The thing
so
is
actually, a significant portion of mobile
only just
gaming
realized
revenue is
this.
based
It's
on
just
ad
a bit.
revenue these days.
Got it.
Like,
We're going to get to that mobile
Christ.
game ad revenue in just a second, but I really want to talk to you about just this entire ecosystem. You're kind of breaking it down there. When we look at apparel, headsets, things like that, is that what's going to continue to grow as we go into 2021, or are people simply just going to buy more games?
A bit of everything.
Yeah, so my forecast doesn't include aftermarket accessories or peripherals, so stuff that you would buy after the fact. Clothing certainly is not in there. There are headsets bundled with game consoles, but by and large, that revenue is not included, or headphones, stuff like that. But certainly, gaming culture has kind of become a much larger part of mainstream
Yes.
life for Americans, and all over the world, quite frankly. Esports has kind of taken off, and so there's a variety of ways in which video games have gone beyond, what many considered to be kind of a nerdy thing, 10, 15 years ago. These days, all age groups are playing video games, and it's kind of permeated the culture in many ways.
You know what? Let's talk about that for a second. We have a lot of things coming up. We have stimulus on one hand. We also have vaccines on another hand. And as you mentioned, gaming has made a transition. It's not just necessarily playing, it's also watching or sharing about it on social media and things like that. How do you see vaccines impacting the entire gaming industry going forward? Because before the pandemic, we actually had people gathering in stadiums to watch people play video games. So would that continue after we have a vaccine? Would that become even bigger because people have that pent-up desire to get out and interact?
Right. Well, I certainly think that once these vaccines get out there and they get, presumably they do have the efficacy that we've seen, and they're relatively affordable, over the next year, I'm projecting that there will be an elevated spending on video games through 2021, because I think it will be a relatively slow rollout, and therefore, people getting together like they used to, going out to restaurants, going out to movies, going out to, all sorts of social gatherings, including esports types events. Those things will come back, but I suspect that most of this next year, many parts of the world will be in some sort of partial or recommended lockdown situation, so that the spending on video game, or the bump in video game spending that I'm looking at, is partly driven by the fact that many people are at home, and this is one of their main ways, to entertain themselves, right? They've lost many other forms of different ways they used to go out and have fun and do things. So I think that it will come back. I think that there will be growth in esports specifically. But in the meantime, right now, esports has really taken it on the chin because, yes, physical events have gone away just as they have everywhere else. And so a lot of the publishers involved in that have scrambled to move those sorts of events online. And they're making more money from like ad revenue and things like that rather than the physical event, which it used to be, kind of more like traditional pro sports or something. So it's very much a fluid dynamic, but I do think that by 2021 or so, more people will be going out, and so there will be a return of live esports events among many other activities that people have normally done outside.
All right, Lewis, we got to let you go. One quick question: we always talk about best of breed when it comes to stock. I'm a big Madden person, so for me it would be EA. What's your pick on the best video game stock?
Wow. Yeah, I since I focus on the technology rather than earnings per se, I've been wrong about this before when I prognosticate. I mean, I'm a fan of Activision Blizzard in many respects. I have a lot of respect for what that company does as a whole. But the whole expectations versus reality thing, there tends to be a gap there. So they're doing well. As far as revenue goes, and there has been a bump in terms of revenue at Activision Blizzard since the onset of the pandemic. Right. Obviously, Nintendo's done pretty well, and Apple. There's a few other companies that have benefited from this.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.
I wonder what else has happened in the video world.
This is 2020, and as I'm sure most of you are aware, it will soon be coming to an end.
What else has been happening? What else has been happening? Blah, blah, blah.
Towards CO2 neutral mobility. So we have flicked the switch there, and really we're going to step by step electrify everything. And what does that mean? Combustion engines get electrified.
It's really a reminder, isn't it, just how sensitive the markets are to any commentary about trade. We did see some pressure on the yuan, we did see some pressure on the futures. That is now being reversed.
Central banks are showing no sign that they want to take their foot off the gas.
Domestic activity is still really in the doldrums.
We could see the first quarter dip back into negative territory.
I'm expecting a fairly tumultuous year coming.
We do have some risks out there. It looks like an asset bubble is brewing.
The post-vaccine rebound is going to be incredibly V-shaped and quick.
It will be V-shaped for some. It may not be V-shaped for others.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Ferro, and Lisa Abramowitz.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television. I'm Matt Miller here in Berlin alongside Carol Master in New York. Tom Keene, John Ferro, and Lisa Abramowitz are off this week. A lot going on. Well, here in Europe, let me start off, Carol, with Brexit. It's almost, really, truly almost done.
Getting signed on the dotted line? Yes.
Yeah, well, they have the commoners and the lords are going to be voting on it today in Parliament, and then you've got here in Berlin. We're in the seat of the EU of the Euro presidency. They hold it until Thursday. And Ursula von der Leyen, of course, a German who runs the commission in Brussels, they're about to cement a deal with Xi Jinping so that Europe will have a closer relationship with China. The question is that good or bad? And then in the U.S., you've got Mitch McConnell killing and burying Donald Trump's $2,000 stimulus check. So that's not going to happen. Maybe until the next Congress. So there's a lot going on, but just not moving markets. Outside of Bitcoin, you really don't see a lot of movement this morning.
No, listen, it's really quiet. There's thin trade, and maybe we're not surprised to see it. Let's just bring up the boards for everyone, just so that you can see where we are on this Wednesday, because S&P 500 futures, Matt, we've been talking about
Bitcoin
it. This has pretty much been the trade throughout the morning, just up about 12 points. A little bit of support for crude, that 10-year note with a yield of 94. Let's see if we can bring up Bitcoin, because that is, as Matt mentioned, one of the outperformers of 2020, and we continue to see some more momentum. I think it was up about 3.5%, but we did see it, I think, go above 28,000 today to a record high. I think it's up almost 50% so far in the month of December alone. So, Matt, that's kind of what our year has been, like these incredible outliers. And then, you know, value, maybe it started to do better, and then it kind of backed off. It's just some strong outperformers, and the rest of the market kind of just moving along a little bit.
Yeah, no, the question is that rotation going to happen? And depending on who you talk to, a lot of people say it's already started.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't too sure. Let's bring in a guest who has a lot of experience with this kind of thing, even though it's been a while since a value rotation. Jim Paulson from Luthold Whedon Capital Management. He's the Chief Investment Officer there. I'm not saying you're old, but let's say you're our age, Jim. you fit in the same demographic
old,
with
man.
me and Carol.
I qualify.
You were there the last time value stocks were hip.
He's seen a lot of cycles, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So are we going to see it again? Is it possible that we rotate out of growth and into value now that actually some of the stocks I think of as growth stocks could now be value stocks?
You know, I've sort of moved away from thinking a lot about value or growth. I thought more about sectors, because I think ever since the dot-com boom, we have really screwed up kind of the value growth trade-off.
Okay.
There's a lot of times I'll own parts of value and parts of growth, and I think that's a better way to approach it. I think a lot of the value space is already starting to outperform and will continue to outperform, but I wouldn't necessarily just buy a value ETF. You know, I'd still look at sectors. I think there's some sectors in there, the traditional value sectors I really like. I really like the global synchronized recovery play, which to me really hits a lot at the industrials and materials sectors, traditional, more value plays. I like the idea that we're going to have probably in 2021 the fastest world growth rate in a long time, and particularly in the United States, maybe the fastest growth here. I think it's going to be around 6%, so maybe since 1984. And to me, that says interest rates, yields go up this year, which would favor, I think, the financials in a big way, traditional value play.
So, Jim, wait, Jim, let me jump in. Let me jump in, because Steen Jakobsen, who we had on earlier, talked about a 10-year maybe hitting 1.5%, 2%. And I do wonder if indeed we start to see rates going higher, if we see some signs of inflation. How does that play out essentially, though, when it comes to Fed policy? And what does that then translate into the financial markets, the equity markets? Do we see then ultimately a pullback as a result, even though we're seeing strong growth in the economy?
Well, I think that one of the things that's really interesting, there's a lot of unique aspects, Carol, about where we are today.
Oh, shit.
But one of them is that this record-setting low yield environment and really inflation environment simultaneously. So as we lift off into this new recovery, we're not lifting off from 3 or 4% yield and 3 or 4, 3% inflation. We're lifting from record, unprecedented levels. And I think they could go up a fair ways before they really become problematic for the economy and for the stock market. I look back, for example, to 1900 just recently, Carol, and it took all the months when bond yields have been below 3% and looked at what's the impact on the stock market when they go up versus what they generally did if they're above 3%. When they've been above 3%, which is about 75% of the time since 1900, the stock market actually goes down on average when rates go up. But when you're below 3%, higher rates actually lead to a better stock market by a wide margin. In fact, all the months that we've had a 10-year yield below 3%, the stock market, when they went up, the stock market annualized almost 16% gains. And I think that the difference is if we take the bond yield from below 1 to 2, it'll actually boost confidence in the future. It might stoke animal spirits in the economy, moving us away from fears of negative yields in the United States and the like. So I think that will actually be a positive rather than a negative for a while.
Got it. Jim, thank you so much. Jim Paulson, Luthold Whedon, Capital, of course, the CIO over there. Good to get his thoughts and some optimism there, Matt, when it comes to maybe the outlook.
I thought but this is Ripple that
All
they're
right,
talking
speaking
about,
of,
so it's not
well,
XRP.
going the other direction, maybe a little pessimism is needed. Let's bring in Andreas Kluth from Bloomberg Opinion. He is typically a positive guy, I will say. But Andreas, you have a piece out that caught my eye on Opinion about the EU-China deal that we're expecting to see this afternoon. I think Ursula von der Leyen is going to jump on a call with Xi Jinping. I'm not sure if Chancellor Merkel will be on that call, but they want to deepen their relationship, and you say that's a mistake. Can you tell us why?
I think it's a mistake because they rushed into this deal. The deal has been they've been in talks since 2013 for 7 years. And everyone agreed that it was stuck mainly for all these years, mainly because China wouldn't move an inch on the most important things, such as giving a level playing field to European firms and not using forced labor in China and adopting international conventions. And then everything was stuck. And then suddenly Xi Jinping, president of China, seems to have realized that with Joe Biden, a much more skillful leader in the White House is coming in on the U.S. side, and that this American leader will renew the transatlantic alliance, and that Europe and America could start presenting a united front against China in a number of policy areas. And then he personally, Xi Jinping, personally intervened and says, we got to make something happen. We have to have a deal. It could be a precursor to a trade agreement. We got to give something. So he seems to have given something, and my fear is that he gave very little, and the Europeans, just to have a deal, said, oh, great, let's do a deal with China, and as a result undermined the incoming Biden administration before the Americans and Europeans even had a chance to talk about how they could have a combined strategy against China.
Andreas, talk about timing, and I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. But speaking of timing, just crossing the Bloomberg terminal, the EU and China giving political nod to that market opening investment pact, which is exactly what we're talking about. So it looks like full steam ahead. But I do wonder about the timing. It's just a few weeks from an incoming Biden administration. As you said, President Xi, understanding Biden is going to be a much more skillful negotiator. He understands global politics. But I do wonder about the EU side of this, that they weren't thinking, well, wait a minute, this has been traditionally, normally, historically, the United States and EU allies. And I do wonder about the timing here.
The timing here, well, first of all, from what I've heard, from my sources, the breakthrough was definitely initiated by Xi Jinping. Your question is, why was the EU so surprisingly receptive? And that has, unfortunately, to do something with Chancellor Angela Merkel, who has exactly until tomorrow, so one remaining day, to hold the rotating presidency of the EU in a body called the Council of the European Union. And she wanted to get a number of big deals done because she's out next year. And she wanted to have a legacy. One was to, we could talk about the internal EU deals, but one was this. She wanted to have a success, and she probably, on the Council side, there was a nudge, hey, to the Commission, hey, can we accelerate this? And that's what they did.
All right,
Andreas, I got to say, I'm pretty bummed out. I'm glad you could join us on the phone. I'm bummed out that I haven't seen you in the office in so long. I got a hardback copy of Hannibal and Me.
It's interesting to see the news. What? Oh shit! Yeah, because I'm live on thingy. I forgot about that. Wonder Woman, really? Why? What's wrong? What's wrong?
So why should you get yourself an hoodie?
Because it's good.
No,
guys, I'm super pissed in this one.
Well,
if you want a very angry ranty movie review, this is it. We went so long, it went an hour. I split it into 2 videos. So we got 2 videos on this. This is the movie review with very little spoilers, if not any. Trust me, this film doesn't even deserve that. And then we do an angry rant and point out all the numerous plot holes, and there is a ton, and exactly why we had such a disappointed and angry reaction to Wonder Woman 84. But first, I want to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, and we created a special little parody for them here right at the beginning. Check that out, and then jump right into the review. See you guys soon.
Mijo, you're not getting any taller. Are you not eating? Did you hear your cousin got into med school? How come you aren't going to medical school? You're not going to be around forever. I want grandkids, you know.
Hey, nephew, did you know that the Denver International Airport is actually the Illuminati headquarters? And Bigfoot is real? And you know what? The moon isn't even real. It's the kaleidoscope in the sky. It shifts all the time.
I'm sure you're eating enough.
You want a bear?
You know what? Some of the parodies are actually pretty funny.
Who's that, a video game?
What's that?
Guys, not all mobile games suck, especially if they're from a PC port. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is one of the good ones. No Timer. Absolutely loved it. I was so happy to see the Wonder Woman character done justice on screen. Now, granted, I gave it a little bit of tough love there for that third act.
Yep, we all agree on that one.
Mustached Aries English.
I have tank armor. Well, I have concrete armor. Well, I can shoot projectiles. Well, I can absorb projectiles. Now it's like what?
Yeah, I know that is
fight
crazy. But you know what? Not even the first movie was that was this cringy, this cheesy. This, in fact, I was wrong.
Really? Is that bad?
I was wrong.
About what?
I've been going on and on about how Patty Jenkins, given her so much praise, how she understands the Wonder Woman character, and so I have no problem with her taking over Rogue Squadron being a film. I would rather it be a TV series, but it's a film. And I gave her so much praise, I was wrong. Patty Jenkins does not understand Wonder Woman. Not after this. This was an aberration. This goes against the message of this film is so screwed up.
Is it that bad?
It's screwy. It's stupid. It is criminally stupid.
Yep.
I can already see, Joe, the only reason why you hate this film is it's because it's a feminist film or because they're trying to empower women. No, not at all. Even the Mary Sue, which is a feminist publication, and said that this film is a serious disappointment, and they point out all the reasons why this film fails on that front. So it fails as a feminist film.